Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of the Big O Podcast. I am your host, Julian Ortiz. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope everyone had a safe holidays. Today, I am joined by a very special guest from NBC Sports, Bay Area, host of Bach Talk, and co-host of Cork'd podcast with MLB agent Rachel Luba, and Oakland A's fanatic, Jessica Kleinschmidt. Jess, how are you doing today?
I'm good. That was a very drawn out intro, and I respect it.
It's hard. It's like
it was like when when Undertaker walks down, and you're like, "Come on, dude." But you don't interrupt him, right? You're like, let him do his thing.
Especially
because the guy puts eyeliner on. You need,
You hear the music, and then you don't see him for another 25 seconds.
Right. It's like when I say I'll be 5 minutes, it's like an Undertaker 5 minutes.
I like that. Undertaker 5 minutes. I like that.
Yes.
First and foremost, Happy New Year. How were your 2020 lockdown, quarantined holidays?
I mean, it was good. This is my first time back at home for Christmas in 2 years. I never come home for the holidays because people think I'm just baseball and that's it.
Right.
But I do cover the Warriors and the Niners and everything like that. And obviously my first year with NBC Sports Bay Area, the Warriors were still good. And so that was cool. I got to text my mom from the studio while the Warriors were playing, and something for her to adjust to, but it's my first time home. I haven't gone back to the Bay yet. I'm going back this week. So I've been here for 3 weeks and my family hasn't been sick of me yet, but
that's good.
Mom's is doing good with the backdrop. I've got some stuff, Cubs hat from when I played Little League.
There we go.
And I don't even know what that's from, but it's cool.
That's awesome.
We're killing it.
Now, people around this time of year are busy making their resolutions. Are you a resolution person?
I am, but I don't call them resolutions.
Okay.
Obviously, working in sports, it's we all have the resolutions for the A's and the Giants and stuff like that. I do have goals, and I'm very much a driven individual. So I do have the goals, and it's just keep the bullshit people out of my life. Put less expectations on people, not because you shouldn't put expectations on things, but we're all going through some shit. So don't put too much energy and time and effort into people, because we all have our lives to live. And obviously, I never want to lose weight because that's a shitty thing to put on a woman. I just want to continue healthy. I love working out and I love staying active, but I also love nachos and chicken wings. It's going to maintain that. But I have a couple cool things lined up that I don't want to mention just because I don't want to jinx them.
Right.
And because I'm a superstitious person that way. I'm not even a little stitious. I'm pretty stitious, superstitious. So, but yeah, I've always had goals and I love beginnings. So that's why I'm never worried about starting over and starting anew and starting a new planner or starting a new journal. I'm a big journaler and everything like that. So I love a new year. That's my favorite holiday is New Year's Eve, because I get to wear a sparkly dress for 5 minutes and then get drunk in sweats later.
That sounds like a good time. That sounds like...
What is else wrong with that? I can tell you what. I always like the idea of being a girl, but then I try to be girly. I'm oh, this fucking blows. And then
there's a lot of effort that goes into those things,
Yeah. I like the idea of date night, but then I go out on date night and I'm can we go home now and put sweats on and get drunk there? Because that sounds way better.
Speaking of date nights, now I know that we have a little bit of a time limit because you have a very special virtual date, not the first one that you've done during quarantine. We've heard on the podcast that you've, done a few. What has that been like in 2020 and trying to get to know someone via webcam?
I mean, that's a great question, only because a lot of guys don't want to date me. They just want me to follow them on Twitter and ask me about Trevor Bauer. That's literally it. Because the moment they were hey, where's Trevor going to go? I'm fucking peace. But it's not bad. I mean, I'm used to being on camera and talking into an inanimate object. I do a lot of IG lives. I take a lot of selfies. I'm cute. I'm going to take a lot of selfies. It is what it is. But it's not that bad. But a lot of times the guys, I mean, we're in the pandemic, so it's difficult, but the guys never want to step up and actually come meet up with me. Okay. So it is what it is. And guys are scared of me. So it's just fine. Yeah.
That's actually a great segue to like one of the first questions that I want
That's
to
a
ask
good
you.
segue that men are scared of me.
Well,
Okay,
it comes into the fact that, you know, when men are sometimes intimidated by strong women or women.
Really? I had no idea.
Listen, I have a very strong-minded wife and I have two little girls, so we are pro women, and I just take the back seat and I do what I'm supposed to do, and then keep it moving. But in 2020, which is going to get a bad rep in the history books, there's going to be a giant asterisk next to it because,
and weirdly, it was one of the best years of my career, which is the weirdest thing.
Right.
But yes.
And so there were tons of positive things that came out, right? One of the best years of your career. We had some amazing firsts take place. Alyssa Nakin became the first woman to coach first base in an MLB game for the Giants. Sarah Fuller became the first woman to score in a Power 5 conference football game for Vanderbilt. Becky Hammon was the first woman to serve as a head coach in the NBA. Kim Ng, first GM, not just in baseball, but in any of the big four North American sports leagues. And
Asian American too.
That's right.
That's a rarity.
And Kamala Harris, first female, first black,
Oakland,
first South Asian vice president in U.S. history. So as someone who champions the success of other women, how does it make you feel when you hear some of those firsts?
I mean, the fact that you kept naming them is there. That's like the most amazing part of it, right? And I feel like I want to remind myself that we're still getting started. And you know, when I just got started in the industry, I didn't know any women were attainable as far as being a mentor or, you know, talking to. I'm not saying my mentors weren't amazing. I do have a lot of male mentors who really shaped my career, but they never were like, oh, she's good for a girl. She was just good. Now I'm a former baseball player, not softball, but baseball. And I played baseball until I possibly could and was told you're going to have to switch to softball because I'm not going to put you on the team. And believe it or not, back in those days, I didn't have as much strong will. Sassitude. Yes. I wasn't much of a sasshole, as I like to say. And I was just like, you're right. But I always like a challenge. I like figuring it out. Right. So I switched to softball. I couldn't hit worth the shit until like 5 years into my softball career. But I was the best defensive player you'll come across. And so I was always used to it. If I fucked up, it was because, oh, girls shouldn't play baseball. But if Cody Croxton playing shortstop messed up, well, you know, he's having an off day and everything like that. So I think that groomed me to be the person I was, only because I was very much like Kim Ng, where you had to be better than the rest of them because what else can you do? Right. So I just turned that into everything. And, you know, the Jessica Mendozas of the world, I just remember her watching her play softball, and now she follows Cork'd Up and she's a big Cork'd Up fan. And that blew me away. And Rachel even told me, and I was like, really? Like, okay. And Jess has read some of my articles, and when she covered the wild card game, she talked about it on live ESPN. And that was a really cool full circle moment for me. And it reminded me that women are supporting women. And don't get me wrong, like I can be a little, I don't want to say jealous. Like obviously one of my best friends is Rachel Luba, and she's doing so many amazing things. And it wasn't until I matured and I thought, okay, well, I shouldn't be jealous of all the things that she's doing. They could be motivation. And, you know I'm never going to have a law degree because I'm literally a college dropout. Right. I fucking hate school. So it's just like, she's always going to have a better education than me. But then she'll sometimes tell me like, Jess, like education's whatever, just a bunch of pieces of paper. And, you know, like I don't have any student debt. My future husband's going to be pumped about that, you know? so like that. And so I've always just trying to maintain my cool, but I never wanted to be treated any differently. And I feel like that's what the main part of being a feminist is. And when you hear the word feminist, you're like, oh, whatever, but you can be pro women and not be without being anti-men. You know, men are majority of who I cover, and the athletes are actually my allies. Like I have amazing men in my life who, like Taylor Trammell, randomly stood up for me for no reason over a sexist piece of shit who was being mean to me on Twitter. And Trevor Bauer has my back. And, you know, a lot of these men have my back, and Michael Morris is a good friend of mine. And a lot of times they forget that I'm a girl, not from a weird way, but it's like, oh, right. Like y'all have it more difficult. Right. So I want to be treated fairly, but I also, we're cut from a different cloth. It's different. We do have to have have some grace with us, but also treat us fairly. So it's great to see all this stuff happening, and we're making the road less bumpy for a lot of people. But I can't hold your hand throughout the process. Jess Mendoza didn't, carry me like a baby throughout all of it. And it's also kind of a lot of pressure too. Like it doesn't just stop with me. I have a platform, and I have to be careful what I talk to other young women about, and men look up to me. And I think that's really cool. I get text messages from people all the time from men saying that I look up to you. And that takes a lot. So it's great and it's wonderful. But at the same time, like I work hard, and my gender shouldn't matter.
100%. And I mean, I reached out to you because I sent you I think it was a clip from a podcast I did with some guys, international scouts for the Toronto Blue Jays, which is where I am right now. And two of the three of us have daughters. And so we are like the biggest allies, because we see, and I followed you on Twitter, I follow you on Instagram, and I can see the comments that come in on, I don't even want to say a daily basis, but on a tweet by tweet basis. Mm-hmm. The first 5 mentions are probably people who love what you're saying or giving some sort of, funny take on it. And then after that, like, the Twitter trolls come out, and it's infuriating to sort of see, because when Sarah Fuller was named to Vanderbilt's team and that she was going to be their place kicker, all of the comments were like, I hope she gets like run over. I hope that, she gets injured so they can realize that they shouldn't be on the field with grown men. Or then you have like the sexual comments that I'm not even going to discuss because they're so horrific. I can't imagine what that is like, because I'm not exposed to those kinds of things. But I have 2 young girls who I'm glad have role models such as yourself, Jess Mendoza, Rachel Luba, that are paving the way so that they don't have to experience the same bumps and bruises along the way to achieve whatever they want. Because realistically, by the time they're growing up, they're going to grow up with women being in these positions, having these jobs, and it's going to be something that's normal to them, and it's not going to be the anomaly anymore. And I love the fact that you guys are using your platform to do amazing things. I also love the fact that you are this person who does not care what she says. If it offends people, you're going to be your authentic you. And I think sometimes that is exactly what is needed for people to be like, listen, she's just a regular person. Greg Popovich said it about Becky Hammon just recently. Her being a woman was irrelevant. And he didn't say that in a bad way. He said she got hired because of her skill, because of her experience. And I hope that it doesn't take many more years where we have to talk about firsts for women doing amazing things. It just becomes the norm. What are your thoughts when it comes to that?
Yeah, and that's interesting, because you feel a lot of people get offended, like, oh, why are we making it a big deal because she's the first female GM or whatever? Well, because if it was Jimmy Garoppolo, who was the first guy to throw 14 interceptions on a Tuesday, that's still a historical thing, right? Yeah. That was a really bad example. I'm so sorry.
Poor Jimmy G.
I just wrote about him recently. I know people are wondering about him, but that's the shittiest example I could possibly. It's what I'm saying is, how Sports Center likes to cherry pick little things. For sure. You don't have to cherry pick if you're the first female GM, the first female to do, or the first female whatever, but it's still going to be historical. And it's no different if it's the first Black man, if it's the first Asian American, like, it's still history. We don't need to, oh, well, she's a girl, so we're going to make it a big deal. Well, no, I don't see y'all making comments when it's whatever. Yeah. And you think about it this way. The one thing that I always remember is there was one scenario. I was covering an A's game, and somebody of prominence was like, well, what happens when people want to approach you and say, what are your qualifications as far as, like, did you play the game? Mind you, I'm sitting next to Michael Morse, and of course he's got a really great MLB resume, but the 2 gentlemen to the right of me, I've never heard of them in my life. They certainly as hell could not have a better baseball resume than me as far as playing goes. And if they did, tell me, because I've never fucking heard of you. you would never approach these two dudes and been like, hey, have you ever even played baseball?
Yeah.
Or do you even like baseball? Do you even like sports? And because a lot of people will just think like, oh, she must have been shoved into like covering sports. You know how many people would kill to have my job?
A lot of people.
Not somebody who was forced to do it, you know? And mind you, I only played baseball to a certain amount, whatever. But the reason why is I stopped playing when I did was I was told you're not going to make the baseball team.
Right.
And rather than fight it, I was like, hey, I'll just, try something else. But you can't play professional baseball, especially 10, 20 years ago and make a living off of it type of deal. So It was kind of like that thing. But, it's great that all these things are happening. But, I want me being female to be like third in line, like I did all of this without an education. I did all of this without my parents are not involved in the bigs at all in any capacity. I have no hookups. I do now. I didn't at the beginning. I had to, climb tooth and nail to get it. And even the guy who hired me at NBC Sports Bay Area knew I didn't have a strong education. And I had to teach myself how to be a better writer. I'm a good writer. I'm not a great one, but you can't mimic what I do. And so I host 2 shows. I'm also an analyst. I also cover baseball. I'm trying to be an insider. I'm also, covering the other sports, and I blog and I'm fun. I create all this content and I want to do all the things. That way somebody's not like, oh, well, you can't say that I don't work hard. There's no way in hell you can do that. You can't blame it on, oh, she's got the looks, whatever. I just got on TV 2 years ago. So stop saying that my looks are a part of it too. So it's from that dynamic. So it's all these things where, I hear the comments and you see me dunk on people. Yep. I can't do that forever because that's exhausting, but you also have to put them in their place. And I will never, at the beginning, I was just like, I'd be more rude and personal. And now it's just like, a lot of times they're trying to correct me and when really they think they can do my job better than me. And it's like, then do it. Go do it. Because I was getting fed up with some of the way that baseball was covered. So I wanted to go out there and change it and embrace the fun and weird and kookiness that baseball always has been. I just feel like a lot of the old men who are the demographic forgot about it. So I wanted to change it up. I'm never going to be the demographic of the regular baseball fan. It's not going to happen. So just in that dynamic, but I just wanted it to be an equal playing field from a certain point. And I know if Buster Posey retires and he gets a commentary job, I think his resume is going to look a little bit better than mine as far as MLB playing goes, but I'm just going to cover it differently and I view it differently. And that's why I've been so successful. And I don't take any bullshit either. And I had to teach myself ways. And it was never like, oh, I don't have an education, so I'm scared. It's like, well, let me teach myself these things, So it's, when it comes to the negative comments, I'm not as annoyed by them anymore. Right. I'd rather take all of them on than have any of the girls I mentor have to deal with them and everything like that. But I also don't like women complaining about being a woman in sports.
Right.
That's exhausting. Like every time you tweet that you hate being a woman in sports, a cat loses its tail. Like, it's just like, if you're going to spend your whole day tweeting how tough it is, you could be writing an article. You can be applying for jobs. You can be booking guests. You can be sending out emails. There's so many things you can do. Yeah, we know it fucking sucks, but like, let's do the work, ladies,
Now I want to bring it back to how it all started for you, right? Like you talked about your playing days, but with being a family, with baseball being a family affair and Sunday family dinners being spent at the snack bar at Providence.
You did your research.
I tried to. You spend a lot of time at Providence Valley Little League. How did your love
Valley Providence.
Valley Providence. There we go. All right. Valley Providence Little League. How did your love for baseball truly begin?
I'm so lucky that I had parents where they wanted me to like do what I wanted to do. Baseball was a part of our history, but we didn't really talk about it. So I was born in Baltimore. My mom dated a Baltimore Oriole. Ooh. We don't talk about it, but it's fine. It's fine. We won't. Not a name that anybody would know, but and so my parents started dating. My dad loved to tell the story of the time that my mom dumped a Baltimore Oriole for him. And so as time went on, my little brother, we were born. I was born in Baltimore. We moved to California for a little bit, back to Reno. And so my brother was in first grade and he wanted to play Little League. And my parents were like, cool. Like, if you want to play, it's cool. And I was sitting in the stands one day and they needed a right fielder. And I was like, I'll do it. I was like just chilling. And so the moment I threw the ball, I look at my dad who was coaching, and my dad was like, oh shit. And I was like, oh shit. Everybody was like, oh shit. Like it was like a whole thing. I mean, obviously I was in 4th grade. So it was like, oh gosh. But I like to exaggerate. I'm a woman. That's what we do. So I was throwing, and it was kind of like rookie of the year moment where I like cocked back and threw it. And I was like, oh, this is dope. Let's go. They put me in right field because like obviously it was my first game, and that's where you put like the shittiest player in Little League. I didn't know that. I was like a pig in shit. I was pumped. So I was loving it. And I got to sign up the next year, and I just kept playing. And I was a really good player. Like I genuinely was. I think I had like the second best batting average. And I was the only woman to ever, girl to ever make 11, 12 All-Stars, which is basically like the regular All-Stars for MLB. And we were just busy. My mom was a part of it. My dad was a coach. He also was like the groundskeeper, and he eventually became the president of Little League. And so it was just our life. It was what we did. We loved the tournament ball and everything like that. And one day it was Little League Day for like the A's, and we randomly got tickets, and naturally we were in Reno. So we're 3 hours away.
Right.
So we drove to an A's game, and you want to talk about God and full circle moments. We arrive, and this was, A's love fans more than they love their team, basically. Right. So we arrived, we're supposed to get like $2 tickets, and those tickets were sold out. But the tickets people, they were like, oh, well, we'll give you like box seats for $2 each. And my dad was like, let's go. We sit down. The moment we sit down, Eric Chavez hits a bomb. And I was like, who is this guy? And weirdly enough, there was a brand spanking new planner, or not planner, program. Typical, always organized jest, but a program. And I look at the program, and it's Eric Chavez. And the best part was the week before I shifted from first base to third base because I had this arm, and I'm still 5-0, but I was, the tallest person on the team when I was 5-0. But everybody else was getting taller, and I was staying the same size. So I shifted to third, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Like the guy who hit a home run happens to be the third baseman, and him and I actually share a birthday. And then I kept looking at the program, and I was like, wait, who is this guy? He's from Reno, and it's Mark Kotze. He's the outfielder, and he happens to live in Reno. And so full circle moment, I cover my first A's game, and Eric Chavez is throwing up the first pitch in the opening day game. Mark Kotze was the quality control coach. And I got to do the Bernie lean with Coco Chris. And unfortunately, it was when I covered that opening day game was the last time I ever got to see Tyler Skaggs. But and it was weird because him and I shared a moment, and it was crazy. But I came home after that A's game when I was 12, and I was on the couch, and my dad sat in his chair, and I like changed the channel because I was like watching the A's game. And he's like, Jess, why did you change the channel? I was like, I don't know. I'm kind of embarrassed, but I want to keep watching this team. And he's like, why the fuck would you be embarrassed? Like, that's cool. Like, keep doing it. Because he was like old school, and I didn't want him to be like, girls shouldn't play sports. Right. Like, why did I think like my dad was some like old school house, little house on the prairie? I don't know. And so he was great. And so I just told my dad, I was like, I don't know what it is about this team. I need to pay attention to them. And he's like, no, I'm proud of you. Like, go ahead. And then I remember that moment so well. And it was Mark Ellis was hitting, and I watched him on the television, and my dad was sitting here. And I was like, there's something about this team. Like, I don't know what it is. And that's kind of how my love for baseball was born. And time went on, and I kind of forgot, but I was like growing up, and I didn't think that my sports job was actually going to be a thing. When I was like, my dad was like, well, you can like watch Bonnie Bernstein, watch Oprah, see what they do, and that was when women could only be sideline reporters. But as time went on, I was like, sideline reporting's cool, but I don't think I'd be good at it because I see my girlfriends doing it, and I was like, they're really good. Like, I don't think I could do that. So as time went on, I just kind of created my own type of thing, and a monster was born. You
created your own niche, which like doesn't happen often. And so that's pretty cool. Now I do have to ask you, I had the Eric Chavez note in there in case it came up, the what did I call it? The birthday sibling. I had it in my notes. If baseball didn't have your heart, what sport do you think would have carried that rose for you?
I don't know if I can confidently answer that, because baseball is the love of my life. But I did kind of have an affinity for like the Phoenix Suns, and it was like Steve Nash, Stoudemire, Grant Hill, but it was just like whatever. And like football was fine. But I mean, when my brother tried to play football, I was a cheerleader at one point. But I had to quit. Not many people know this. I had to quit because I had all-star baseball to do. And my cheerleading squad got mad because I like left the stunt, and I couldn't perform the stunt at the school assembly.
Oh boy.
My freshman year. Fuck off. Like whatever. It's
ditch the cheerleaders to play the sports. Listen.
Yeah, but like I thought that's what girls did. Like I wanted to be girly so bad, and I was okay. Like I looked cute in the outfit, but like that was it. I didn't like football at the time, so I was like, this sport sucks. Like why am I here? But like all my bros that I grew up playing baseball with played football, so maybe it would be football, but I didn't really even get into football until I was a fantasy football writer for 6 months. And now it's different because when working for NBC Sports Barry, you're covering the Raiders and the Niners, and you have to pay attention because even though I cover the A's and Giants in baseball, if I have to write a Jimmy Garoppolo story, I'm going to do it when he does throw 14 interceptions on Tuesday. Mama's got to be the one to write it,
Listen, you talk about being superstitious. You put that out into the universe.
Maybe he'll get 14 touchdowns on a Wednesday. Oh, I don't know.
Maybe. It's interesting though, because you talk about writing fantasy football, and your credential for that was auto drafting a team the first time that you did fantasy football, and that was your experience.
You told that. I told people that. Yeah.
That's a hell of a way to end up writing fantasy
and I beat
football.
My father and brother, so naturally, there we go. Like all the rest of the men who play fantasy football, I'm an expert. Sorry, Field Yates. Sorry, Matthew Berry. I beat my dad and my brother, so what do you want?
That's it.
On auto draft. Actually, it's kind of a baller move, like on auto draft. Like that's a little bit bragworthy, and also you're lazy as fuck.
It's like a perfect combination of both. It's excellent. Now, I do want to get into some baseball, and I want to go back maybe about 14 months ago to a story that came out. I believe it was like November 12th of 2019. Mike Fiers, your beloved Oakland A's pitcher.
Very beloved. Love him.
Goes and talks to The Athletic and lets them know that the Houston Astros use technology to steal signs at home plate. Now, obviously, we know what sort of has happened with that, but I want to know from your perspective covering the A's, what was it like to be around the organization, the clubhouse, and even those individual players when that story broke?
Sorry. But you mentioned like November 12th, and naturally I'm like, I hope I text my brother happy birthday that day.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Jess pretended she had technical difficulties to avoid talking.
Wait, what did the Astros do? Okay, now let's look. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Oh yes, Mike Fiers in the Astros. So up front, I was extremely proud of Mike Fiers. The only thing that sucked was like I loved the Astros. I really fell in love with them about like a couple years before they had their first World Series run, because they reminded me of the A's. They were young, they were scrappy, everything like that. So the clubhouse wasn't that bad, but you have to remember, this was all I had access to. Mike was media day and spring training, because then everything closed down. So I had one of the first interviews with Mike Fiers. After it all, I was told not to ask him any Astros questions. Right. And I probably could have been a dick and been like, fuck you, A's, I'm still going to ask him. But I really wanted to develop a good relationship with Mike Fiers. I really did. It was for Bach Talk, and it was one of my first interviews for it. And I really remember there was this one guy, I showed a picture of me and Mike doing the interview. And somebody was like, I really loved your interview with Mike Fiers. And I was like, this hasn't been published yet. Like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, well, was it difficult? So people were fucking stupid about it. Like, you didn't even know if I asked him about any stuff. But that's what my goal was. I wanted to develop a good relationship with him. Not to mention, like, he's thrown 2 no-hitters. He took Jesus Luzardo underneath his wing. There was a lot of stuff I could ask him about.
Right.
But as time went on, like, let's call let's talk about the elephant in the room, whatever. And so spring training was interesting, but he was great. Like, it wasn't me who asked him a bunch of the Astros questions. It was somebody else. But as everything got shut down, the Zoom conversations, like, we asked him, like, do you think it'll be weird? Like, since you won't have fans and it will be a little bit less tense and everything like that. But I didn't like how people were giving him death threats. I didn't like how people were calling him a coward. Mind you, I'm a team player myself, like my boys and the people I work with, I would do anything for them. But if they were to cheat on their spouse, I would call them a piece of shit.
Right.
Like, that's just is what it is. I wouldn't be like, oh, you narked. Like, no, I'd fucking be like, that sucks, dude. You're a piece of shit. Like, it's not like that, type of deal. So it was emotional only because I genuinely felt sorry for him. And he's a genuinely good guy. And I'm not just saying that. But it was interesting too. And of course, people are always asking, like, did too much time go by and everything like that. And he even said, he was like, I don't know. Sure. Like, will it be weird because there's going to be cardboard cutouts instead of fans booing me? No, but I was genuinely bummed from a selfish perspective. Like, it would been really cool to cover that Astros A's game, only from like a witnessing retaliation or what have you. But things went on, and Ramon Laureano ended up getting in a fight anyway, a big brawl. And people were so stupid about that too. They were like, oh, well, it was like Ramon played for the Astros. Like, he kind of did, but like kind of didn't. Yeah. And it was just like, Ramon Laureano just happens to be a spicy guy, and it worked out from that perspective. But it was really interesting to be able to see Mike for the first time. And then we had the media day. So it was like all of us, like the scrum, got together, and, ESPN used my video on Sports Center.
Okay.
Just kind of like that.
No,
we're all kind of joking. I was actually shooting the shit with Chris Bassett because Mike wanted to have availability for all of us. And I looked at Chris Bassett. I'm like, what do you think we're going to ask him? What do you think we're going to ask Mike Fiers? And Chris is like, I have no idea. Like, just like, so just kind of one of those things. And I'm not dumbing it down to it being facetious or anything like that. Everybody was talking about it, but from the very beginning, it was a good way for me to be a serious journalist I need to tweet and report on as many facts as I possibly could. And I've heard from a lot of former players that would play for and against the Astros. I've been stealing signs since I was in Little League.
Part of the game. You
bring technology into it, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And I've heard that, like, the Astros always took it to the next level. And that's a direct quote from a Giants source who used to play against the Astros. And it is what it is, and it happened. And I can promise you they won't forget. Because you think about pitchers have the best mentality and memory of anybody. I think it was handled weird, and there's certain players in the Astros I can't look at the same. But I had to be an unbiased journalist. And obviously I don't know what the Astros went through. I wasn't there. I do cover the A's and I cover Mike Fiers. So I can only give you what I witnessed and what I reported on.
So I'm definitely going to have to bring you back for a part 2, because I know we are a little bit pressed for time and there are a few other questions I want to ask you, but I do want to come back to exactly what you sort of talked about with looking at players a little bit differently and how things were handled. But some quick fire stuff I'm going to ask you. It did
go by fast. Wow.
I know, right? It was crazy. With roughly 6 weeks before pitchers and catchers are set to report and a notable amount of high profile free agents still available, I'd like to predict some of the biggest stories in 2021, starting with the length of the season. Do you think we'll get a full season or close to a full season as possible? Or do you think April 1st brings the worst April Fool's Day prank?
I think we're gonna start spring training on time. That's what I'm hearing. It's scheduled, but a lot of that's fluid. We're thinking about the vaccine. We're thinking about the CBA is coming up. So I can only tell you what I'm hearing. I'm also hearing 162 probably is not feasible, but way more than 60.
Right.
It's not going to be a 60 game season. I hope not, because And I feel like it would have been more pressing if the Dodgers didn't win the World Series last year.
Right.
I'm not taking this away from anybody. If the Rays or the Marlins or even if the A's won it, I don't know. People might talk some shit about that because it's like, oh, it's a 60-game season. It's like, but the Dodgers did it, so people aren't as pissed off, you know. But I think, I'm concerned we might have another spring training / summer camp scenario.
Okay.
Because you have to think of the quarantining, right? Sure. So we have spring training in Arizona, in Florida, and then they have to go back to their respective hometowns. And then maybe another summer camp happens because there also has to be a quarantine before they travel. And we're still learning about the virus. We're still learning about the vaccine. Apparently there's another stem coming out because why not? Let's fucking go. But so from that perspective, but I can confidently say, I believe there will be more than 60 games, but I do not see 162. And that could be a mixture of the delay.
Right.
But I also don't know if Manfred wants to continue with, let's start shaving off some games. Because a lot of former players said they wouldn't mind 150 games. Like, that's not a huge chunk, but 60 games is not enough. And I talked to Marcus Semien in free agency recently, and the guy is now a free agent, and he didn't have enough time to prove that he's worth a 9-figure deal, you know? And you're not going to give him money based on he's a really great guy, you know, like you can't be like, well, his Baseball Reference says he's a sweetheart. So, you know, type like that. So I think it's going to be interesting, but I'm obviously we don't have the Players Association and the league's going to go. So we want the players to be safe. We want them to feel comfortable. At the end of the day, they're playing a game for me to get paid, but I want their families to be safe. I want them to be okay with everything. But I think last year is going to set a lot of precedents. And I don't think that the players are going to be too lax about a lot of things.
Right. I think only Mark Cuban.
As they should. I
think only Mark Cuban gives nice guy contracts as he gave to JJ Barea, knowing that it was his last year, and then they waived him like 2 weeks later. So Mark Cuban, nice guy.
That's why I am not going to be a good GM ever, because I'd be like, oh my gosh, he like tweeted out the cutest thing of his son. Can we just give him $1 trillion? No.
$1 trillion. I love it. All right.
I just want to give him $1 trillion. Like, Jessica, he hasn't even been drafted yet. But look at his YouTube page.
He's so sweet.
He's so sweet. He said such a funny tweet the other day. Guys, come on. Come on.
Now, which playoff team that made the playoffs this year doesn't make it this coming postseason? And
Reds.
I agree with you. I was going to say Cincinnati. And then what non-playoff team makes the playoffs this year?
Didn't they all make the playoffs? Really?
It felt like that.
I honestly couldn't tell you because I don't remember.
I'm thinking like a team that was like maybe on the cusp.
Did the Mets make the playoffs?
No, the Mets did not make the playoffs.
Then we'll go with Mets.
All right, I like that. Okay.
I'm not trying to be stupid, but like everybody made the playoffs.
I think the Mets are actually in the top 10 for World Series championship odds.
Let's fucking go, dude. Yeah.
Which rule change from 2020 would you like to stick around in 2021?
This is just for me.
For you.
And it sucks because I wanted the universal DH until I saw the Giants. And I was like, maybe not. I didn't really love all of them.
I didn't mind the double headers.
Did you cover the double headers?
Okay. From a fantasy perspective, and the only time
that's what we worry about. You know what? Let's leave those. I want y'all to be happy.
Trevor Bauer single-handedly won me my fantasy baseball league for the first time.
I love Trevor. I don't give a fuck because covering double headers was a lot. I loved it. I can cover baseball. I could cover 4 games in a row and be happy. But by that 4th game, if you put me on television, it's not going to be pretty.
Well, I mean, if you were covering the Reds, or I think it was St. Louis probably had the most double headers because of
the re-ups. But then I cover the Giants a lot too. Okay. So like they would always have like the extra inning games. And before I even went to NBC Sports, when I was working for Cut 4, we couldn't be done with our shift until the last game was done. It was always a fucking Giants game. And mind you, like I was working from home, it was fine. But when you have to work in the studio and like the train is gone and you don't know how you're getting home, like type of deal. I like the expanded playoffs. I didn't hate them.
So you just shit on. Didn't everybody make the playoffs, and now you're going back with? I don't mind it. It's okay.
Would you rather me choose between that or your fantasy team doing well? I don't know.
Fair enough. The last one I'll get you out of here with. The Dodgers, do they repeat? And if not, who are the biggest threats? One team from the AL, one team from the National League.
I think the easiest play to call is going to be the Padres, right? And I don't know if I can confidently say they're done bringing anybody else. Not because I know anything necessarily, but AL, it's tough to call because like there's still so many free agents that they're going to sign. I do have a feeling that Trevor will be with the National League. I just have that feeling. I feel like he's an NL guy. But I really want to see him bat too. So we'll see. So NL's Padres, AL. I wish I could say the A's. I just don't see it. I mean, this is not like a sleeper pick. Like it could be like, I think the Yankees are going to be really good.
No, it's any team that you think is the biggest challenge to the Dodgers repeating.
Let's just say Yankees, only because it's a safe bet.
I hate it. I'm a Red Sox fan, so I absolutely hate that. But can't.
Do you want me to say the Red Sox?
No. It's not what I'm saying. I was going to say.
You only have Eovaldi and Prayers is what y'all have.
I don't even know if we have Prayers anymore. I think Prayers went out the window.
I think the Prayers are going to suck this year. Yeah. Like, let's be honest. But I'm going to say Yankees only because, like, I was talking to Rachel about it on Cork'd Up. This was like, I don't know if it was the All-Star break. There wasn't one. So maybe 20 games in. But I was like, I really hope a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees makes the World Series. And depending on how many games it is in 2021, I'm kind of feeling the same vibe. But I think there are a lot of teams that still would have done well. Like I feel like the A's would have done really well with that squad for 162 games. But I'm just going to say Padres and Yankees because I'm a little lazy.
Fair enough. Last thing, obviously we talked about this before. You were host of the Bach Talk and the Cork'd Up podcast. Where can people find the podcast? Plug your social media. Your time to shine.
I don't care if y'all follow me or not, to be honest.
That's not true. Wait, hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to interject. That's not true because on one of the second to last episodes of your podcast, when you were supposed to talk about the Rule 5 draft, you and Rachel got into a little bit of a spat about because Twitter followers. So
fucking Rachel.
Okay, so where can people follow you so we can get that tally up?
She already did it, so she surpassed me.
We're gonna catch her. We're gonna catch her back up.
The bitch got on Twitter a year ago. I'm just like, that's cool. Yeah, sure. So follow me on Twitter at Kleinschmidt. JD said more followers than Luba, and on Instagram, Jessica Kleinschmidt, because I do want 10,000 followers by like mid-year or in like 2 months. So I want 2 months. I want 10,000 followers. And I have a Facebook business page that my mom accidentally always sends me emails on because she's not a great texter. So she's like, I'll Facebook message you, but she'll sometimes send it to my business page and they always give you like automatic replies. And she gets so offended. She's like, what do you mean you'll get back to me when you have a chance? And I'm like, Mom, like you sent it to my business profile. It's fine. So now you know where I get it from. So that's where you can get all that. Bach Talk, NBC Sports Bay Area. And then that's on YouTube, that's on Art19, Spotify, Apple Pods, Cork'd Up, Spotify, Apple Pods, YouTube. Rachel's very pretty, so they like to watch us a lot on YouTube, all that. And sometimes we like to prank call Trevor Bauer, so you should definitely follow that one.
And you got merch now. You got merch just launched.
Girl, we have some good fucking merch, yo. And I didn't know we were making crop tops until I got them in the mail. And I designed a shirt, Rachel designed a shirt, and we're so proud of them. And I really feel like Cork'd Up is going to kill it this season or this year. Stop talking like a reporter. But and we have a really cool project coming up. We're going to be featured in a really cool article soon. And I hope that you pay attention to that because I worked my ass off with Cork'd Up. I'm kind of taking on a producer role with it too. And like, I want to know, like, because Rachel's extremely knowledgeable, but I want people to like be curious, like wonder what the fans would want to know. And I'm taking on that role as a fan. And so that's been really cool. And to know that we're getting really a lot of support, and Trevor loves it, of course. And then Taiki and both co-founders, and Momentum's blowing up, and everything I'm doing with NBC Sports has been really fun. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm so appreciative of all the followers and love, because it makes my bosses happy, which makes me happy, and I get a paycheck and everything.
I listen, I love Cork'd Up. It's one of my favorite things to tune into. Obviously, we talked about the fake eyelashes before the podcast and the crop tops. The only thing I will say is, if you ever come out with a non-crop top hoodie, because I'm very much a hoodie guy.
We are looking into it because we actually care about men. We are feminists, but we're not anti-men. But no, you're right. But here's the thing, no offense to y'all, women are always looking for more women-friendly stuff. So that's why we cater to them first. We will take care of the men. But I do believe there's one of my best friends who may or may not pitch for the Chicago White Sox, who will be sporting one of our shirts.
Well, like I said,
the shirt cuts come in unisex, but we are going to have some more male-friendly stuff.
Yeah, I'm cool with the color. Absolutely love the color. Just not a quarantine, did not do the dad bod crop top.
Girl, tell
stuff.
me, and I don't mean to say girl, but it's like a habit. But when I was showing off the swag, I was like, I would show it to you, but like I'm sitting down and it looks like a cheeseburger stuffed into a keyhole.
Jess, you are amazing. I had so much. I don't think I've ever laughed this much on my own podcast. I'm sure I'm going to laugh listening to it, but it's been an honor. Hopefully I can have you back on again closer to maybe when baseball's supposed to start.
I would love that.
And good luck with your virtual date.
Thank you.
For Jess Kleinschmidt, I'm Julian Ortiz. Please subscribe, follow, available wherever you get your podcast. Have a great night, everybody.